Hi, everybody. Rick DiClemente. Welcome to Astrology Unplugged. Good to have you. Tonight we'll be talking about depression because I've seen several people suffering with it recently, and it reminded me of an article I did in 2012 for OM Times Magazine, and it was kind of well received. So I want to make sure people are up on the thinking about that illness because there's still a lot of debate about whether it's physiological, is it psychological, is it genetic, is it all in your head, is it what? Is it the chemicals? It surely isn't the president in the White House. That couldn't cause you to be depressed. So anyhow, we're going to talk about that. I first wanted to mention to you our upcoming guests next week. What's the date today? 19. Next week will be the Reverend Todd Foster, who is really he's been on the show before. He's just he's a jack of all trades. He's just excellent with Reiki. He runs the Reiki Center here in Pittsburgh. Just excellent. He's tremendous with the pendulum, all kind of modes of healing. I asked him to come on to help people who are suffering, maybe give them some ideas to alleviate some suffering. So he'll be on next week. October 24th will be Leanne Fortunato Heltzel. She was on my very first week, my very first guest. She'll be coming back, and she does something fascinating. She deals with your quantum future, which really isn't a future because it's all now. But for instance, if you're writing a book, she'll take you mentally through a guided meditation to the book that's already finished. You haven't even started. She'll take you and visit that book, and that book will talk to you. That's one way of putting it. Very intriguing, and she's brilliant. So she's going to be interesting. She does a lot of work with businesses. Followed by November 7th with a longtime friend of mine, Linda Veros, who is quite the psychic, does all kind of magical things. And she's going to be talking about what she calls the rainbow bridge. I'm always talking about this in terms of the connection to your heart, your Christ center. She's talking about the rainbow connection. So anyhow, that will be on November 7th. We're going to dive right in tonight into a discussion about depression. Now, I want you to remember, if you've watched me before, if you are coming across from YouTube and watching it on a rerun, this is done live every Thursday night at 8 o'clock. If you would like to join us, it's free. Just simply go to Google, type in Astrology Unplugged. It'll give you the link to join us Thursday nights at 8 o'clock Eastern. And then I put them on YouTube either Thursday night or Friday in the afternoon. Okay, so tonight's subject is depression. Now, and the reason I was bringing this up earlier is I am not talking about Gemini, the Gemini that you know. I'm not talking about Leo, the Leo you happen to know. If you read the book that we wrote in the background, I'm talking about the essence of that sign. When I talk about a Libra, I'm talking about the heart of Libra. Not every Libra you know. Now, if you all know 50 of each sign, then you understand what I'm saying. Most people know one or two or none. So when I talk about Sagittarius, I'm talking about the real heart of Sag. You may know a Sag who gets bummed out and gets depressed, maybe very depressed, but it's not typically Sagittarian. It's from other planets in their chart. So I can't express this enough. And if you don't know your chart, this is one of your disadvantages, not understanding these cross-referenced planets. So you're highly encouraged to get acquainted with your chart and not on a computer by getting to a good astrologer who can explain it to you. Okay, so we're going to start off with Aries. And the interesting thing I find about the word depression, the word depression comes from the verb depress. And to depress them means to push it down. To push it down. Now, why is it, you see, there's so many arguments about whether it's psychological or whether it's chemical and all that. I'm not going to get into that because I don't know the answer. All I know is people come across it, they suffer greatly from it, sometimes becoming suicidal. We're going to talk about what we can discern astrologically. Okay? So when I go through certain signs, I'll say they don't usually get that depressed. Doesn't mean you don't know one that does. I'm talking about the Aries energy. Okay, for instance, with Aries, it's not a depressing sign. Usually the fire signs are not. Aries, Leo, Sag, because they're fiery. They're by nature, fiery signs are upbeat and they're at it. Now, they have a lot of zeal. The Aries people that I have noticed that get depressed, they get depressed almost always for one reason. And usually the one reason is that you can't get to the heart of you. How do I explain this to you? When I read for people, I try to get you to unplug from your sun sign at first, because I want you to unlearn and get unglued from all the concepts you have in your mind of all the junk you've read in the newspaper and magazines. And then at the end of the reading, I try to get you back in married to your real essence, which is your sun sign, in a healthier way. So I get you unplugged from it, and I try to plug you back into it. Kind of like pulling a plug out, cleaning it off, put the plug back in. Get a better connection. So, Aries people are usually not depressed because they're so active. They're very dynamic. When they got something on their chest, they get it off their chest. They're usually very innocent, very pleasant to be around, unless they become too much Aryan, and then they become so self-oriented, so selfish, that people just start disowning them. That can become very depressing. But that's not usually the case. Aries people are adventurous and they want to test themselves. They want to see what they're made of, okay? And they get fascinated with themselves. The Aries people that I have found that are depressed, and I've found some, and is really in the rest of the chart, are the ones who have grown up not being able to get in touch with that part, that instinctive part. And one of the main reasons Aries people have trouble growing up is everybody around them is trying to teach them to think before they leap. That's how you destroy an Aries. They're not like the other 11 signs. The other 11 signs think before you leap. Aries is the hood ornament on the car. They're out front. I don't need to think. Let's just go till we crash. If we crash, then I'll learn something. So the Aries people that I've dealt with depression, I merely have to work with their blockages. What are they? Trying to get them to start respecting their instincts, because an Aries is either sharp or they're dull. And if they're sharp, that's because they've been going by their instincts, and they may bump their heads a little bit, but they get by. And almost all Aries accidents, the head's involved. Almost always. But once they can get rid of the dullness, which is, I'm sorry I don't have time to read the chat messages. They have allowed cautious people around them to take their fire away. Once they start saying to other people, you want to be cautious? Okay, that's not me. That's the key to an Aries getting past depression. Start to respect the fact that you are instinctive and get that instinct sharpened once again. Now, if that doesn't solve it, then something else is going on in the chart we need to look at. Now, I'm going to tell you right away, here are the signs. Here are the signs that have tendencies towards depression. Okay? Cancer, Scorpio, Capricorn, Pisces. Those are the ones that have a tendency towards it. Of course, any sign can be very depressed. Taurus next. Taurus is not usually a sign that's depressed because they're very simple people. They're very laid back. They're very pleasant to be around. And they usually have a very simple life. I always think of the Hobbit in the Hobbit hole smoking the pipe with the feet up to the fire. And they're very content. That's the word with Taurus. They're content with what they have. They're usually not real complicated. Okay? They can become depressed, but it's usually for some other reason in their chart. Something's going on with the moon or with Saturn in their chart, Cancer energy, Capricorn energy, who knows what it could be. But Tauruses are usually not so. And if they are depressed, it's because they're not allowed to let themselves be. It's always the case. What do you want in life? You want to just be yourself and be left alone. You want to be left alone in the sense that it's okay for you to be yourself. Taurus people, they like to have a simple little house. They love having dogs and cats around, a little garden. They love especially gardening. And they're very content, very satisfied. If a Taurus is depressed, it's usually because they're in the wrong job, or the number one reason Tauruses get into any negativity is they're staying somewhere too long. A relationship, a job, whatever. I once had a job in the computer field where 80 of us couldn't get out fast enough because our boss ran the company into the ground. And 80 of us, pretty talented group of people, couldn't get out fast enough. The last two people to shut the door were Tauruses. I think one of them's still there. They're just fixed. Gemini. Gemini hardly ever is depressed because they're too active and they're too mentally quick and they're too inquisitive. Okay? By the way, you can go to my website, and I published in this newsletter this week the link to the article I wrote in 2012. If you'd rather see this in writing, you can go to that link. It's also on my link on my wall on Facebook. It's an article for the OM Times magazine about the keyword depression. Now, Gemini will fool you because there are two sides to Gemini. And one of the sides of Gemini is they're their own enemy because they want everybody to take them lightly. And then they get depressed if they're taken too lightly. They're known for taking a lot of flack for not being deep enough and being somewhat shallow emotionally. Well, I know for a fact that they're a lot deeper emotionally than people know. And they get depressed about that. They get depressed because people don't take them seriously, but then when you take them seriously, they want you to take them lightly. Does that sound like our president? Yeah. If you're one, he wants the other. If you're that one, he wants this one. And I've gone into great depths about this in that book. One of the key challenges I had writing that book, you can ask Liza, I worked really, really hard trying to ascertain why Gemini are the twins. And I looked around the country and talked to lots of people, and not many people know why, other than the fact that Gemini has two moons and they're just the twins. Well, why? Well, I feel like I did a pretty good job uncovering that in the book, The Exquisite Zodiac. Usually Geminis are not. They're very playful. They're very upbeat. And another reason that Aries and Geminis don't get depressed is a lot of times depression is because you're sitting on some anger. You're sitting on somebody pissed you off, and you don't say anything about it. Well, you piss off an Aries and a Gemini, especially Gemini females, woo! They're going to tell you what it's about. And that depression lasts about 4 seconds. And then they're past it. Okay. Now, I don't mean to make light of any sign, but I'm being very general. Now we get to the first sign that has quite a tendency to be depressed, and that's the sign of Cancer. Cancer has a tough, it's at the bottom of the zodiac, and it's a tough sign because it's the first sign that entertains water or feelings. And Liza and I spent a lot of time. Cancer was all written, and we just went back and we just put it through the motions. We just did not agree with what's been written all these years about Cancer. And we realized that Cancers are the first time in the zodiac, if you take a long view at it, that the soul is feeling. And when you're feeling, you realize that other people can hurt your feelings. Now, if you look around at the Cancers, you know most of their depression is because they didn't get treated right. They were not given the extra white glove care that they needed during growing up. Somebody, you don't love me, I'm too sensitive, whatever. Cancer is I'm not going to say this, I will say it in general. It's a lot of the autistic spectrum is because of Cancerian energies in people's charts. It's the world's too much for me, the world's too loud, the world's too harsh, people are too mean, what are you doing attacking me? Look at the center of Trump's chart. Trump's not a happy person. At the middle of his chart is Venus, Saturn, together in the sign of Cancer, about to get hit by Pluto and Saturn in December and January. Unfair. You don't treat me good. My crowds are bigger than your crowd. It's all based in low self-esteem, or nobody loves me. We know that he was treated rather roughly, etc. So the key with Cancer is, yeah, you've got to, how do I say this? Cancer, and including the United States, this is really our sign as a collective. I was listening to somebody today talk about this. We're too concerned with the consequences. Instead of acting the way we feel, we start to act, we start to worry ourselves about the consequences, we come back and we swallow our acting. Again, you can't be yourself. You got to be yourself. And Cancers will do it, but they're going to stop short because their ultimate is not being abandoned. They got an ultimate huge fear of being abandoned. And if I act this way, I might get abandoned, so I better not act that way. And Cancer is the sign of I'd better take care of myself. You know any Cancers out there? Does this fit? Okay. Someday I'm going to do an entire show on the pain that we bring upon ourselves being a Cancerian country. We're in a stupor. We are really got our heads deep in the sand and our butts blowing around in the wind and getting whacked. We don't know what to do about it. And the people with the big money just walk on us. They know how to take advantage of it because they keep dumping more and more shovel full of fear. That's what they do. They keep filling you with fear. Be careful. So Cancers can get out of it because Cancer is underrated. Cancer is a very tough, strong sign. Why do you think they got those big crabs on that claw? Big claws on those crabs. I'm getting spoonerisms. Those great big claws. You back a Cancer into a corner, you got a hellacious fight. Okay? Look at Jimmy Cagney. You want to mess with him? Can be a very tough sign. But what they have to do, the trouble with Cancer and the reason depression comes is they're leaning on somebody else to give them their strength. And that's got to stop. As long as you're leaning on something, the family, another person to give you your strength and safety, you're going to have trouble, period. And until you start to find your own Plutonian power inside and find your strength, summons it from inside, then you'll get stronger. Then you'll get stronger. You'll be much less likely to be depressed. The sign Leo is very confusing here because every Leo out there, just one little micrometer beneath the skin lies a Cancer. And there's a skin over top of Leos that's very upbeat. Robert De Niro, what do you think? Me, I'm doing fine. Hey, who are you talking about? Very confident sign. Well, a lot of it's an act. And it's a fire sign. And not only is it a fire sign, it's a fixed fire sign, which means the fire keeps blazing. Fixed fire is upbeat and usually in one way. This is the sign it does not get depressed. They're really upbeat. But where they can get depressed is they can end up becoming divorced from their own self. They can end up being so much the image that they're projecting that they create almost a permanent barrier between the image they're projecting and who they are. And that's going to lead you to real depression. I don't care what you sound like. That's what the president's got with his Mars and Leo rising. You want to mess with me? Huh? You want to mess with me? We're armed and ready. We're armed and ready. We're armed and ready. Blah, 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 blah. But is it real? Is it real? And the trouble with Leo, the challenge of Leo is to find your own self-respect instead of looking for it outside of you. Once you start to get your own strokes from inside instead of looking for them from the outside, then you get stronger and you got the fixed fire and you're going to be fine. Virgo. Virgo is not depressed because they're not allowed to be. There's your answer. Virgo is a problematic sign for Virgos. And the reason why, and I've done a lot of work on this year, Virgos ain't allowed to. Because Virgos are so busy doing what they should. And I've spent a lot of time working on that word should. And I've come to the conclusion that should is nothing but someone else's opinion. You should do this. You better do this. Better do this. Well, who says? I'm not talking about becoming anarchistic. But who's the should? Is it the Bible? Is it the Kabbalah? Is it the Black Panther Party? Is it your daddy? Is it your wife? What is it? But boy, I tell you, it's not simple to get a Virgo to give up the shoulds and start to get in touch with what they want to do. Now, this all comes from a very deep, pure place. And usually Virgos are not depressed, but mainly because you're not digging. You very seldom with a Virgo get down to the real self. You're dealing with the robot. Check, I did this. Check, I did that. Check, I did that. You don't usually get down to the real self. Now, the Virgo females are doing a lot better than the males are in terms of getting in touch with their own inner fire, doing what they want. But another way of saying this, Virgos don't get depressed because there's no sign like Virgo. Virgo appreciates the life they've been given. They really care, which is why we changed the book and we changed the article that Virgos, instead of being seen as perfectionists, are to be seen as purists, and they care. But when you're pure and you care, you are excited by life. You're excited over blue sky. You're excited when somebody brings you 3 different colored leaves during fall because you see the pure beauty of life. And that keeps you from being depressed, the purity itself. But like I said, the biggest challenge with Virgo is to respect what you think you should do, which is trying to be in sync with the goddess energy. It will make you feel good when you're productive, etc. But don't let yourself become a robot. Don't let yourself become subjected to this constant person behind you with a clipboard. I made a mistake. I saw that. Didn't cross that. Didn't cross that T. Didn't dot that I. I saw that. I saw that. I saw that. There's nobody back there. There's no one there. So that's what's tough about being Virgo. So usually Virgos aren't depressed. Libra is hardly ever depressed. It's not a depressive sign. It's very upbeat. It's a social sign. It's the Aries of the second half of the zodiac. I need a drink of water. Sometimes Libra can be depressed, and almost always, if Libra is depressed, it's because the relationship they're in is suffering. The relationship they're in is suffering usually because they've sold out too much. They've become a non-self trying to give more than 51% to the relationship and not enough respect to their own fire. They're very smart, and what I've been realizing lately, you can replace the word Libra with the word street smart. They're street smart, savvy, clever, quick, smart people. They don't like being around downers. They don't like being around people who are too serious. They love good debates, arguments. They love good debates, arguments. I wasn't arguing, I was debating. There's one right now. As soon as I said it, she appears. She's not too depressed usually. But Libra is very upbeat mental. They really appreciate good mental exchanges. Scorpio. Ooh, okay. Now we're talking about one of the biggies. We had one already in Cancer. Second one, Scorpio. Scorpio, there's quite a tendency for depression. I find, especially with the men. And the women can be too. Why is this? Almost always, Scorpio is depressed because they're just flat out too hard on themselves. They have impossible standards. They're built with this sense of, I will never betray myself. I will never betray you. If you ever betray me, well, you can usually tell within seconds the kind of Scorpio you're dealing with. A lot of Scorpios have risen above it. They've learned the number one thing Scorpio needs to learn, which is self-compassion. Well, there are the Scorpios with self-compassion, and there are the other Scorpios that think that self-compassion is letting yourself off the hook, weakness. And there's nothing you can do with it. Nothing you can do, nothing you can say. Nothing. Can they turn the corner? Yeah. Because no sign can turn the corner faster than a Scorpio. No sign can hit bottom and completely resurrect themselves more than Scorpio. So they've got great potential. But almost always, Scorpio problems come from the expectations of themselves. And when you expect anything from yourself, you're expecting the same from everybody around you. You expect everybody around you to never betray you in half of a sentence. Well, it's just ain't gonna happen. People can't do it. So look at the Scorpios, you know. Gloriously filled with intense, wonderful energy, powerful, or dark, sullen, mysterious, keeping everything to their chest. So that's where the depression comes there. Also, the Scorpio Libra pairing there. The Scorpios can get down if the relationship's not going well. As I said in the book, Libra, Scorpio, this is the two signs. These are the two signs that if you got a bunch of them, and it's very common to have planets in one sign and have planets next door. If you got too much Libra, Scorpio in you, you've got too many marbles in the basket of your relationship. And that means that your future is controlled by how they act. Good luck. You can't be controlled by how they act. You got to be controlled by you and your relationship to the whatever. That's the relationship that matters. And one of the beautiful things about that relationship is always totally forgiving. Always. We can't get that, but they got it. And the junk that we've been fed about the vengeful God and hateful God and going to hell, all that crap, that all ends up right in the heart of Scorpios. Boom! Turn a page, Sagittarius. The sign is never depressed. Boy, did I get flack when I wrote that. Oh, what are you talking about? I'm a Sag. I've been depressed all over. I'm talking about the core of the sign. Okay, Jupiter. Usually, a Sag is very upbeat. And after a while, they're so upbeat that you even wonder, God, I wish they would get depressed now and then because they're just so upbeat. And it's a fire mutable sign, which means just giving out fire all the time. Think of Bette Midler. Think of Walt Disney. Think of Flip Wilson. You know, think of Danny Kaye. I mean, think of so many Sages. They're just upbeat and they're constantly getting things off their chest. Things don't even have time to hit their chest before it's coming back out. Look at what Jon Stewart did in Congress when he stood up for the 9/11 fighters. And he by himself turned them all around. So you saw the deeper soul. He's a triple Sag. Triple. So don't think that they don't get serious. They can get very serious. Don't think he wasn't depressed about the fight that he was fighting, the cause. That's very Sagittarian. But usually a Sagittarian is very upbeat. Things roll off their back, they let it go, and it's not too bad. Usually it's not a sign it does get down. If a Sag does get down, I really don't have the answer here. Sages are really complicated. They're much more complex than they think. I think if a Sag gets depressed, it's because they can't land on one philosophy. Just like opposite Gemini. Sag has so many different philosophies. That's why Sag is so well read, and they're always reading books, and they're always going to school, and they're always changing their major, and they're always going to different countries. It's an extension of Gemini on a broad level. Well, that's a wonderful thing. But after a while, you got to land somewhere. You got to land somewhere. And to land or be Taurian is just antithetical to Sag. So the way you land as a Sagittarian is you do what Ram Dass says. You consistently replace your mental framework, which has become limited, with a bigger mental framework. And then it'll become limited, and then a bigger one, until you just keep replacing them, until which time you replace it with the truth. And the truth is, there aren't any rules. And the truth is, there is only love, and there's nothing else. There is nothing else. And another way of putting it, that a lot of people say, and the Course in Miracles says, there's love, and everything else is not real. That's a big statement. There's love, and everything else that isn't. There's love and a lot of stuff that isn't. Therefore, there's only love. But you see, it's hard to get on a soapbox, which is what Sagittarians love to do. It's hard to get on a soapbox when there's only one answer. It's a beautiful sign. It really is, but it's really not one that's conducive with depression. Now we get into the final quadrant of the zodiac, where two of the three signs have quite a tendency for depression. And the first one could be the worst, and that's Capricorn. Okay. Capricorn has quite a tendency, as my Aquarian cat just jumped up on top of me. I got an Aquarian cat, I got an Aries cat, so they're both headstrong. Capricorn has definitely, without a doubt, more of a tendency towards depression than any sign. They can be upbeat and they can not get into depression. It depends. They may have a lot of Sagittarius in their sign. They may have a bunch of Leo, but they need something. But the typical Capricorn is depressed because they're constantly backing themselves into the corner. It's not because Saturn has rings around it and wants you to be limited and wants you to not share the bounty. Remember, Capricorn's nature is to make sure, but one of the things that all Capricorns have is this tremendous sense of duty and responsibility. Well, if you have a sense of duty and responsibility, and you're the first sign of the last three, and that last quadrant is a quadrant where you're now opening up beyond the couple into the world, Capricorns feel responsible if there's anybody in the world suffering. Well, good luck. Is the most pessimistic sign of the zodiac? Sagittarius, the most optimistic. So the key, without a doubt, this isn't easy. Without a doubt, the key to succeeding a Capricorn lifetime is learning trust. And trust is antithetical to Capricorn because Capricorn's built that I'm the one that has to fix it. I'm the one that's got to make sure you're not going to get it done. The job ends up on my desk. I'll get it done because I'll bust my butt to it done. Well, that's based on not trusting. 10th sign out of 10, 10th sign out of 12. You're getting pretty advanced here, theoretically. Capricorns have to learn it. Now, several other reasons. Capricorn and Virgo are the two worst signs of the zodiac, accepting compliments. Oh, well, it's really good job. Oh, I didn't do nothing. Well, I'd like to congratulate. Well, I keep telling the Capricorns I know. Okay, now everybody's going to stop complimenting you. You don't want it. You won't accept it. Oh, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. You're not getting there. You're either here or you're not. You're not getting there. If you're getting there, that means you're not there. You're constantly, perennially not there. And maybe in the future you imagine you're going to be, but you're not. It's self-jive. There's a new word. Self-jive. You like that, Linda? So Capricorns are very tough on themselves. They have to loosen up. And it's not a secret here. Now, this is a very sly sign. Very sly. And I is one. And my dad was one. Capricorns are much more talented than they think. And they think that whatever they're doing, they must be cheating because it's going so easily. It's just that doing things for Capricorn is really easy. Because Capricorns understand how things are done. Cardinal sign material, cardinal earth. They understand it's easy for them to get things done. So when they get it done, they think that, oh, I must be jiving everybody. This is what Mary Tyler Moore kept saying all the time. I must be jiving everybody. They don't see. Well, she didn't realize people saw right through her, and they saw the good soul that she was. She was always talking about this Capricorn trait that I used to see. So Capricorns, you're cool. Just relax. You're cool. You're fine. And start trusting. I mean, do it as an experiment. I don't really want to trust this person, but I'm going to trust him and see what happens. Because if you can't trust another person, if you can't trust an institution, what does that say about this? They're one and the same. There's nothing you can do about it. You can't get this fixed till you get this fixed. It's all the same thing. So it's a tough sign. It's a hard sign to be. One of the main reasons is we are the father of the zodiac, and we carry too much weight, much like parents carry too much guilt when the kid messes up. Aquarius, next to last. Aquarius is a tough sign. Usually not too depressive, usually. But anytime you get to the 11th sign out of 12, you're into a very complex sign, and possibly the most complex sign there is, maybe shy of Pisces. Usually, Aquarians are idea fixed. So they're usually in a world of thought. They're way out ahead. They're very, very independent. One of the greatest things about Aquarians is they're very tolerant. And when you're really naturally tolerant of other people, you usually are very tolerant with yourself. See? Scorpio's got to hear this lesson. If you're tolerant of others, let everybody be who they are. You're going to let yourself be. Now, I don't know much about this. I have seen I must say, almost every case when I've dealt with an Aquarian person who's depressed, it's because of cancer issues in their chart, their moon placement in their chart. I'm thinking of some cancers, some Aquarians I know that are always depressed. And it's not the Aquarius in their chart. It's not. I know one that just can't stop whining about the past and the mama, daddy thing, and just on, just stuck there. I know another one who his wife just calls all the shots at all times. He's got permission for everything. And what's Aquarius about? It's personal freedom. So it's not the Aquarius that's causing the depression. It's something else in the chart. That was easy. Pisces. All right, the final sign. Very, very difficult sign to talk about. How do you even start? Pisces, 12th sign out of 12. Usually depressed because somebody bumped their toe in southern Thailand. Usually depressed because some child doesn't have a full plate in northern Australia. So depressed because somebody they met is sad. They don't have any boundaries. That's their beauty, and that's the problem. When you don't have any boundaries, I remember talking to Donna Eden. Donna Eden is a 70-year-old phenomenal energy worker. Came up with the book called Energy Work. She visited Pittsburgh several times. She does all this healing by energy fields. She can look and see all these energy fields around you. She's just unbelievable. She had MS. She was given 3 years to live when she was 30. Now she's in her 70s. She was on stage in 1986 giving a lecture, and all of a sudden, I'm trying to remember the details now, she fell to the floor clutching her chest. They thought she was ill, whatever. They took her off stage, and they found out hours later it was nothing. But they found out hours later that the moment that she hit the deck was the same moment that Gaddafi's son was murdered. Now, if you want to continue to think that we are separate, then do so at your own peril. Because Pisces, as you know, this book was going to be called Pisces, the Ultimate Sign. And I found that it was just not the right title, so I changed it. But what I meant by that is the Pisces dynamic, the fact that the 12th sign of all 12 has the potential of all 12. And the reason it has the potential is because it has no divisions. Every of 11 signs, all 11 signs exist because of division. You're different than them. I'm different than my partner. I'm a Libra. Taurus, I got my stuff. It ain't your stuff. Scorpio, we got our stuff. It's not their stuff. The whole zodiac's based on division, except the final sign. You can't talk about Virgo, because Virgo's not separate from anybody else, because that's the way they should act. Pisces is there, not because they should be. So that's where their depression comes. And it comes from playing the martyr game. And the martyr game, according to A Course in Miracles, is a wrong game to play, because the martyr game is totally based upon not sincerity. It's based upon guilt. And the reason it's based upon guilt is if I beat myself up, then that beating that I knew God was going to deliver, he's surely going to hit me a little bit lighter. Because I'm so bad. He knows I'm so bad. So that's what the martyr game's about. So it's really hard. This spiritual trip that we all talk about is one tough mama. It just doesn't give you a break anywhere. We need a sign. We need a sign. We need a sign, doctor. What's the sign say? And today's Course of Miracles sign says, surrender. Surrender. And then do never Lean not upon your own understanding. So what's coming through your intellect, don't trust it. It just leads you into the mess we got now. The only thing you can lean on is what's coming through you. That you can lean on. Number one, see, we have a silent movie going on here. Seek first the kingdom. What does that mean? She's exactly right. Seeking first the kingdom. So that's where Pisces gets lost, because here's the reason Pisces gets lost. And I spent a lot of time in this book explaining it. It's wonderful that the Pisces has this this selfish, selfless attitude. It's wonderful that they're not concerned about their ego. But they actually go the reverse. They actually get in trouble because they don't fight for themselves enough. They actually need to have more ego. Okay? So if I'm stepping on their foot and I'm grinding it into the floor, they got to quit acting like it doesn't hurt. Because it's not real. They need to scream and slap me. Ow! Get off my foot. So there's where Pisces suffers. Pisces suffers because they confuse true selflessness with low self-esteem. That's a big deal. And I said it a whole lot in that book. They confuse being altruistic with being martyristic. We all know people like this that are wonderful to be around. They wouldn't do anything for themselves if they ever could. They're always thinking of others. But after a while, you get a sense with these folks that they're not real. I know one thing about Pisces, and I mean this with everyone I've ever met. When you reach inside, there's no one there. Think of the Pisces you know. Who knows Pisces? Okay, reach inside. I'm going to turn all the microphones back on now because that's the end of this. I'm going to turn it all back on. You're free to comment. Let me see here. Okay, everybody's unmuted. Reach inside and there's nothing there. Do anybody have that experience?
Mm-hmm.
Speak up.
Actually, with the Cancer, more than the Pisces.
Okay, explain to me the feeling with the Cancer.
All surface.
Oh, no, that's a different thing, all surface. That's like a Gemini thing. I'm talking about the Pisces is so much everywhere. They're so dissipated. They're everywhere that there's nowhere that they are. You can't grab them. You're talking the opposite, where it's all a Gemini thing, and they're all, what they're doing is they're presenting a fake self while they're back here watching. Okay? Right. That's different. Yeah, okay. Linda.
My really close friend's son is a Pisces, and he has never successfully launched a life.
Very common.
But what he does, and please don't laugh, is he fishes.
Well, sure.
That's right. You know what? It's like he's like the best fisherman in the world. He loves to be on the water. He's very calm. He's very kind. He's a good person, but there's just nothing driving him.
Yeah, they don't have an ego. They don't have ambition.
It's just fish.
There's no ambition.
And he doesn't even eat the fish. He throws them back.
But their ambition is to just be.
Right. And
just be.
And he's really quite good at it.
And what happens when you reach inside?
Well, it's like, how would I put this? It's like he has a kind of a defense to that, is that he presents a tough shell, like he's Mr. Western Pennsylvania macho, but it's not, it's like, I've seen through that since he was a kid. It's just not there.
Yeah, he had to survive somehow.
And then he had a massive drug problem for a while.
Very Piscean.
very Piscean, and he still, still smokes weed and stuff, but it's not. I mean, he's functional, and he's not.
The difference is what the doctor talked about last week. Okay, when Jesus said, when he says in the Course in Miracles, I have a relationship with the Father, and my difference between me and you is I have nothing else. That's a big statement.
Yeah, that is.
The difference between me and you is I've got it, but I got nothing else. So your friend, he doesn't have a relationship with God, and that's it. He's got other stuff where he's hanging on.
Yeah.
It's probably stuff his family gave him, or who knows? Who knows what it can be? The chart will show it.
Yeah. I mean,
What do you think about this topic, Doc?
I think that's right. Yeah. But I've got a sister that Mama's birthday's tomorrow. She's 88. And of course, mine was a couple of weeks and Daddy's was the same. And she's Pisces. And it was always like she was never there all these years growing up. Well, now she's been here 3 weeks and she's just trying to go between us. And
I remember my brother passed when he was 52. And my memories of him is, where'd he go? He's up in his room. We played a little bit with this. We played a little bit with that, but they're just slipping in, slipping out. They're made for that. They're not made for this XYZ three-dimensional world. They're just not made for it. And we're all moving towards it. Can you see the cross behind me, Linda?
the what?
The cross.
The cross behind. Oh, yes, I do.
Yeah, I asked Jesus to give me some kind of sign to help me with my show, and I looked, and this is just a natural lighting. The light's shining through my doorway, and it's just producing that cross.
It's beautiful. And then you have the diamond on the other side of it. It's quite symmetrical.
But I'm saying it, yeah, thank you. But it just happened all by itself. Except there's no such thing.
There's no such thing.
No. So anyhow, we're wrapping up. Any questions or comments about this topic of depression?
I do have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
They say that anxiety is the flip side of depression. How does that factor in?
Boy, that's a really good question. My experience is anxiety and depression are all about trust. Anxious means I don't trust that the Lord will do what he said, which is, he said, I'll take care of tomorrow. You don't need to worry about it. But you have to let go and trust.
Right.
And depression is when you're certain he won't deliver. Then what am I going to do? I know for sure. I know for sure there's nothing to eat tomorrow and the next day. How about Saint Francis of Assisi? I read his life story. He was so incredible that the Pope used to come visit him. It's about, I guess, an hour's drive today's world, east of Rome, Assisi. And the Pope used to come visit him, and of course he was starting the Franciscans.
Yeah.
And he used to come to him to tell him to lighten up. I was born on this day,
on his feast day.
He was so hard on his Franciscans, he would not let them beg for 2 pieces of bread. He said, if you have trust in God, you'll beg for 1 today, knowing tomorrow you'll get your peace tomorrow. And the Pope came to him, tell him to lighten up. I mean, that's an amazing story. But there's somebody who has just got the Holy Spirit so deeply embedded. And I think also one of man's problems today is we're getting farther from the Holy Spirit because we got so much stuff. There's just so much stuff, which must be on my tablet somewhere. Where's the Holy Spirit under? Right. There's just too much stuff, and all we need is little signs like the doctor has there, little signs, and that's why I got this. That's right.
Yeah.
That's why I got this, because I couldn't put a sign here, so I put it on my hand just to make me remember. This is a symbol of discipline. Anyhow, thank you all for joining tonight. Tracy, I thank you 1/4. I thank you 1/4 because we can only see 1/4 of you, but that's quite all right. I'm really glad you came. This will be on YouTube. Anybody else to say? Final statements?
What are
Okay,
we doing next week?
next week I'll review once again. Next week will be the return of the Reverend Todd Foster. I asked him to come on because he's so good with methodologies to help people. Cleveland. There's her new artwork. Beautiful. She's so good. Todd Foster is going to be talking about, of course, he's an expert with Reiki, but he's an expert on many types of healing. He's going to be talking about ways in which we can decrease our own suffering. Then October 24th, Lee Ann Fortunato Heltzel will be with us talking about visiting your future quantum world and learning from it as you navigate this present world. Fascinating stuff. She deals with people starting businesses. They go into dream state. They visit the business, which hasn't even launched yet. They go see the completed business, and the completed business helps them form the logo, helps them form the mission statement, helps them form the path for that business. Finally, November 7th will be, you may know Linda Veros. She is a fine psychic from Pittsburgh talking about what she calls the Rainbow Bridge. Okay? This is all happening very naturally. So I want to thank you all for joining once again. I'll see you next week, next Thursday. Tracy, don't be a stranger.
Thanks, Rick.
Yeah, good to see you, honey. All right.
Bye.
Love y'all. Good night
Love
to everybody.
y'all. Love you.
See you next week.
Thanks so much.
Okay.
Bye.
Good job.
Bye.